Hi.
Welcome back to Adventures by Knapps. If you're new here, I'm Siân.
I'm Callum.
And we vlog all of our Disney park, Disney cruise, travel, home life, everything, but mostly Disney, let's be honest. So if you're not subscribed, please make sure that you do so you don't miss out on any of our trip vlogs. And also follow us over on Instagram at Adventures by Knapps and Run Disney Dad Run, which, if you can't guess by the name, is very Run Disney focused.
I like to run.
So we are here with a very much requested video on Disney Vacation Club. It's probably the thing we get asked the most questions about. So we want to give you all the information you need in the most simplified way possible to help everybody understand DVC, because it is really complicated and we are still learning even 6 years later. So we just want to give you everything that you need to know, and hopefully it will help if you're trying to make a decision on DVC or trying to just understand what it is.
So we have been members since 2019.
Yeah.
Wow, that time has flown.
It really has.
And we are members at Copper Creek, which is at Wilderness Lodge. The best purchase we've ever made, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But if you are going to keep going to Disney on a regular basis, make sure you buy DVC.
It's scary. It's a scary purchase. It's a scary amount of money, but we're going to try and go into why for us it's worth it, and why we think for a lot of people it'd be worth it, but it might not be worth it for you. So hopefully this will give you the answer. So we're going to go through it step by step. So first of all, points.
Okay, so you pay a one-off fee for a set amount of points at a certain resort, and this resort becomes your home resort. So when you hear the phrase "welcome home," that's what it's for.
Yeah.
This fee is per point, and it renews automatically for the length of your entire contract.
Every single year. So some people think that you pay the same amount every year, but you don't. That initial fee is one-off, and then that's it almost. So you then pay annual dues per point each year, which is something that we'll go into a little bit later in the video, but we're just kind of focusing on that main point purchase to start with. So you then spend these points each year, and how many points each stay costs depends on 3 factors. Which resort you're staying at, what time of year you're staying, and the kind of room that you need, so the size of room for however many people that you need.
So for example, a studio at Polynesian, which sleeps 5 people, on a Saturday night in September costs 17 points. But the same room at Easter or Christmas can cost 36 points per night.
So it's a big difference. So that how far your points go, there's a lot of factors, definitely. So when people say how many points do I need, that's such a big question, because it depends if you travel in September or if you travel at Christmas. It could be double the amount of points. So this is why we very much recommend speaking to a DVC guide when it comes to working out how many points you need, because that will be very different for everybody. And places like Old Key West and Animal Kingdom Lodge, if you stay in their value studios in September, it can be as low as 9 points a night. So if we did that for our whole trip, do the maths, Siân, we could get almost 3 weeks worth of a stay with our contract. But if we stayed at the Polynesian at Christmas, we'd get a week max. So it very much varies depending on like how you vacation. You can find points charts online for all of the resorts. If you wanted to kind of have a nosy, I'll put like an example here. I'll do a Mike Wazowski over Callum. So it kind of shows you the seasons and how much each night is at Animal Kingdom Lodge. And yeah, I'll try and find a link as well for all of the all of the points guides, and I'll pop that in the description box if you wanted to have a look to just kind of try and work it out a little bit for yourself. So Callum mentioned earlier that our home resort is Copper Creek, so we're just going to go a little bit into home resorts and what that exactly means. Okay,
so as we said earlier, this is a big life choice purchase, so your heart will drive a massive part of the purchase. So when we walked into Wilderness Lodge, we looked around and we said we would like to own here. This is the one. Also, when you're making this purchase, make sure that you're using your head as well, because it's a massive financial commitment.
And you'll hear the phrase, buy where you want to stay, which again, in a second, we'll explain why people say that. So there are multiple resorts that you can choose from. I'm going to quick fire them. I've got them written down in front of me, so if I look down, that's why. So your home resorts could be Grand Floridian, Polynesian, Copper Creek at Wilderness Lodge, Boulder Ridge at Wilderness Lodge, Bay Lake Tower at the Contemporary, Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, Beach Club, Boardwalk, Fort Wilderness Cabins, the Riviera, and then we go further afield. So then you have Aulani in Hawaii. There are 2 DVC resorts at Disneyland in California, which is the Grand Californian and the Disneyland Villas. And then you have got the 2 beach resorts on the east coast of the US, which are Vero Beach in Florida and Hilton Head Island in North Carolina. South Carolina.
It was at this point when editing that I realised I also forgot the wonderful Animal Kingdom Lodge.
So there are multiple resorts that you can choose from, and yeah, you can have multiple contracts at multiple different places. I think that's something for kind of like a bit down the road. We won't go into that now, but you can purchase multiple home resorts. But for the minute, as is just Copper Creek, it won't always stay that way. So it's called your home resort. Basically, you get a home advantage. So at 11 months prior to you travelling, you can book your trip at your home resort. So say we're going on the 1st of September, we can book from the 1st of October the year before for that trip. So yeah, you just basically get an advantage over the rooms there. And some places, so like Copper Creek doesn't have very many studios. So if you want a studio at Copper Creek, and that's where you're always going to want to stay, you're going to want to buy at Copper Creek, and you will need to book at 11 months because those rarely come up. Whereas if you want a studio at Saratoga where there's a lot of studios, then that 11-month mark isn't as important, but it's still why they say buy where you want to stay, because you do get that advantage over all of the other members booking their stays at the same time. And then when you get to 7 months prior to your trip, this is when your window opens for you to then be able to shuffle around where you're staying. So you can swap to other resorts. Obviously, this is very much dependent on availability. And again, we recommend doing this at exactly when your window opens. And these modifications, you can do them all online. You can ring member services, they will do them for you. But obviously, when it opens at 8 a.m. or whatever it is, if you're online ready to go, you've got more chance of being able to swap your resorts. But again, if you're traveling at Christmas and you want to stay at Wilderness Lodge, there's a very, very low chance that you will be able to do that swap. So again, buy where you want to stay, because if you can't then swap it, at least you know you're happy where you are.
Not all resorts have the same contract length. Some contracts, like your Riviera or Copper Creek, will have longer duration or a longer expiration date on them. So they would have been 50 years from when they start to sell. So
we bought the year that they started to sell Copper Creek. So we had 50 years on the contract.
Yeah.
But if you were buying now, you'd have 6 years less than that. That makes sense, right?
Spot on.
And places like, what was it? Beach Club, Boardwalk,
Vero Beach,
and the original Old Key West, they will be the first to expire. They expire in 2042. So if you're buying there, you're only going to get 15 years out of your,
17 years.
17. Great math, Sean. 17 years. So I think, like, we listened to a podcast and they're saying now that anybody selling those resorts at the minute, they're not really selling because people aren't wanting to buy when there's not as long left on the contract. So that's another thing to make sure you just check when you're choosing a home resort, that there's the amount of time that you want left on there. I mean, the price will reflect that, but it's just something to consider.
And that might also be perfect for you, because if you only want a short contract for 15 years, happy days. But if you want something that you can hand down to kids, etc., then you might want to go for the longer contract. So each resort will have slightly different room types as well. So on the whole, they will have studios, they'll have 1 bedrooms, they'll have 2 bedrooms, and some of them have 3 bedrooms plus. A factor can be is that some of the rooms will be slightly smaller than others. Some of them will have a 5th sleeper in there, and some of them don't. So in a couple of years' time, when Jasper gets bigger, we will probably no longer be able to stay at Copper Creek because in a studio because they are 4 sleepers. So therefore we might have to stay in some other resorts which have 5th sleepers in them. So some of those resorts are Boulder Ridge, Grand Floridian, Riviera, Boardwalk. So there's quite a lot of choice still, but we would only be able to take advantage of that at 7 months, not our original 11 months.
We have had very good luck in getting rooms at the other resorts. I think we're very good at doing that. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. The next section is all about bookings. But some people will scare you off and say you will never be able to get this room at this resort, and yeah, it's not always true. We got Wilderness Lodge at Christmas, and yes, we own there, but we booked 4 months before, so we didn't have any advantage over that room. So yeah, it's tricky, but it just depends on your family dynamics. Some families as well, they have 2 adults, 2 children, but they don't want to stay in a studio together. Like if you wanted a bit more room, and you need 1 bedrooms, even though they don't sleep any more than the studios, some families just prefer it just to have a bit more space, whereas we're very happy just to all snuggle in together in a studio and make our points go further. And
a factor is that a 1 bedroom will probably cost you twice as many points as a studio. So again, that needs to be factored in if you want to do that when you're buying your contract. So again, another thing to factor in is if you've paused this at X amount of minutes and you start looking at the points charts and you've gone, oh, you can get an Animal Kingdom Lodge value room for 8 points a night. The likelihood of you getting them is very, very slim. I think there's a handful, it might even be 5 or 6 of them. And unless you own an Animal Kingdom Lodge and you book at 11 months, you're likely not going to get it. So
I think it's even hard then, isn't it? Even when you own that. But
yeah,
if that is the room that you want, then you need to buy Animal Kingdom Lodge.
Yes, but almost when you're planning on how many points to buy, plan that you're not going to get that, and you might need to spend the extra 4 points a night to be able to get a standard room.
Yeah. When you speak to a DVC guide, so they will have the resorts that they are selling currently, like the new resorts. So at the moment, if you spoke to a guide, they would try and sell you Fort Wilderness cabins, maybe some Riviera still, and Disneyland villas, I think, are the ones that they are trying currently.
And Alani, which will be...
Are they still trying to
They
sell
will
them?
keep selling that for the next 30 years.
But just ask, they have all resorts available. They have the most recent ones, which are the ones that they will try and push. Not that they're pushy, but they will have. So say if you wanted a boardwalk contract, if you ask them, they will have a boardwalk contract that they will be able to match to you, because they buy back from people that are selling them all of the time, which again, we'll go into when we talk about buying them, how you buy your contract. But yeah, just ask, because the amount of things I see where people say, oh, I've had to buy Riviera, and I'm like, no, you didn't have to buy Riviera. Like, yes, Riviera is amazing and I would buy there tomorrow, but you don't have to buy the ones with the 50-year contracts if that's not what you want.
So with Disney at the moment, if you wanted to buy a Riviera contract through Disney Direct, it'd cost you $235 per point.
It does go up, which is, again, if you're going to keep going, you need to buy before it keeps on going up. We paid $180 per point and it's now $235-ish. You can get some for less, but on average it's about that. And they do tend to have incentives, so if you buy so many points then you'll get discounts, etc, etc. But it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. And what always happens is people go, I wish I'd have bought sooner.
Yeah.
And sometimes financially it's just not right to do it at that time, but people always say that. And here's something to make you sick. The people that originally bought at Old Key West when it first started, it cost $40 per point.
Way. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And if you're getting a calculator out now and working out what 200 times, say that's like your average contract, 200 points times $135, $235, it's going to be a scary number, but just think we're going to do like a bit of a price comparison in a bit, but that's 50 years worth of your holidays. So if you think about what you pay per trip, that's when you really need to break it down to figure out whether it's like worth it for you. And if you are going to finance the cost, do not finance it through DVC because their interest rate is at 10%, or it's 10% what we bought. It might even be more than that now. If you're buying from the UK, finance it here and then kind of pay it off there, or however you're paying it. If you're financing it, then just try and avoid using the Disney finance because there's some hefty fees to it.
And you don't have to purchase when you're there. DVC reps aren't pushy at all, but they may say, you know, this offer stands whilst you're here, but you can make the purchase after. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
They FedEx everything here and there.
I don't even think it's FedEx now. I think it's Google
it's a Google sign, yeah. So it's super easy.
Yeah.
So again, just don't feel pressured by it. It's a massive decision.
So just quickly as well, you can buy direct from DVC, but you can also buy resale contracts. So we said earlier about how they would have contracts available for other resorts that aren't the newest ones, and that's because at any point you can sell your contract or you can sell it to somebody else. I recommend using someone like DVC Resale Market. They always have to present the contract to Disney first. So Disney get what they call right of first refusal, so they can buy it before. So say someone puts an offer in on a contract, Disney will say, yeah, that's fine, they can have it. Or they'll go, no, like we want that because we can sell that for double the cost to a direct member.
And it's one of the favourite initialisms is ROFA. So you'll hear the phrase ROFA, and it's right of first refusal. Right of first refusal.
But the price difference is significant for buying a resale contract. But with that, you don't get any of the perks that you get from buying directly from Disney. So these perks stand currently, they can be taken away at any point. There's special events like Moonlight Magic, which is where you get the parks to yourself, and it's like free snacks, free drinks, like dance parties, special character meet and greets, all things like that. They tend to do we did like a Halloween event at Boardwalk once, various little events dotted about, but mostly they're the Moonlight Magic ones that they run at every park. I think it's like every park twice a year or something, isn't it? Obviously your trip dates need to line up with that. We're lucky in the summer, our trip dates line up with a Typhoon Lagoon one, which fingers crossed we will get some spots for. But yeah, that is a very good perk. There is lounges that you can utilise. So there's an Epcot lounge, a Disney Springs lounge, one in Disneyland, California? Is it DCA? Disneyland, I think. And there's a new one that's just opened at Magic Kingdom. So basically it's just a place to step away from the parks, have a bit of a rest. They have like free food and like snacks and freestyle machines, tea, coffee. They have DVC guides there that will help you with anything. Obviously, if you wanted to buy any more points, you can do that whilst you're there. But it's just, we really love the lounges, don't we? Like, we just love having somewhere that we can go for a rest away from the rides and stuff if ever we need it. And you also get discounts. So on merch and food, it's 20% on merch and 10% on food, I think. And you also qualify to buy the Florida Resident Annual Pass, which is the Sorcerer Pass, which you usually can't buy unless you live in Florida itself. So it's a lot cheaper to buy the annual pass. They're the main perks. So you just need to work out whether what you save on the contract is worth it to you to not have those perks, I think. There is a minimum amount of points you need to buy to get the direct perks. We think it's 150. That also changes again when we bought. I think it was 75 when we bought. And there are some restrictions now. So if you're buying any resort pre-Riviera, it's fine. You can book as and what you like. But if you're buying from the Riviera onwards, so Riviera, Fort Wilderness, Disneyland Villas, basically anything post 2019, you can only use those resale points at your home resort. You can't use them at any other resort. So that's a restriction that Disney have put in, I think, basically to try and stop the resale market a little bit. And also, say you bought a Saratoga Springs contract, resale, you can't use those points at any of those new resorts post 2019. So if you want to stay at Riviera and you find a really cheap Saratoga Springs contract, don't buy it because you won't be able to use those points at the Riviera. So there are some restrictions that Disney have brought in onto those resale contracts. What I would recommend is buy direct to start with, buy the minimum you can direct, and then top up on other resorts as you go along resale. But also, resale just might be the best way to go price-wise. Callum's got a comparison.
So I did a comparison with Polynesian. So to buy it brand new is $235 per point. To buy it on resale is $160 per point. So if you were to get 150 points, it would cost you about $35,000 to buy it directly with Disney, and to get it resale, it would be $24,000, so a saving of about $11,000. So it's whether the perks are worth it for you.
Yeah, that is a big saving, isn't it?
It's a big saving. When we purchased directly with Disney because we wanted the security. It felt, especially as an international buyer, it felt like we wanted that security. However, we have seen lots of people go through that bought from the UK, and it's absolutely been a spot on process in terms of buying resale. So don't let that scare you off, but the total cost is a big factor.
I think if we were buying now, it might, like, we'd definitely look at, I don't think we really knew any different back then, did we?
Yeah.
But there's absolutely no negatives to buying resale apart from those perks, and if they're important to you. We've just warmed our tea up because we did too much talking and not enough drinking of a tea. So there is another cost which you need to think about, and that is the annual dues. So basically, these are a maintenance fee. So because you own 1 square foot of that resort in real estate.
That is optimistic.
Yeah.
Square inch.
You basically, as members of that resort, are not responsible, but you contribute towards the upkeep and maintenance of that resort. These do increase with inflation, but yeah, it's just something to factor in. So
for example, Grand Floridian annual dues at the moment are $7.93 per point. If you compare that to the most expensive in terms of annual dues, which is Vero Beach, they are $14.30. So it's almost double the amount. The reason is lots of different combinations. So Vero Beach is on the coast in Florida, so it suffers from hurricanes and
gets
storm
hit
damage
by a
and
lot
things.
of kind of like weather damage, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
They are literally always rebuilding the beach and stuff at Vero Beach, aren't they? So you will find really cheap contracts for Vero Beach, like
crazy cheap.
Like the temptation is there every day for me to buy a contract at Vero Beach, but those dues are hefty. So like most of them are like, there's an average, isn't there? Like they tend to be around that point. This year, anybody owning an Animal Kingdom Lodge has seen their dues increase more because Animal Kingdom Lodge is about to go under a refurb. I was going to say transformation. I was like, that's very dramatic. It's about to have a refurb. So the newer resorts like Riviera, your dues will be relatively low because it's not going to need anything doing to it for quite some time. So it's things like it's the maintenance fees basically, and you pay these every year. Is it end of January? I've written on my notes here February, but I think it's end of January. You will basically get a bill for your annual dues. We set up a monthly savings, so every month we transfer. We split the yearly cost that ours will be. And transfer it basically just into a side account and just save it up that way, just to make sure that it doesn't come as a surprise when that statement comes to say you're due your bills. But Callum, very cleverly,
she's given me a lot of credit. So all I do occasionally is I'll keep an eye on the exchange rate. So when there's peaks and troughs in the market, if I suddenly see a peak and it's heading in a really good direction, I'll make sure that I pay off some of the dues. So you can actually pay your dues off with Disney in advance, even though it says
it doesn't
that you
pay it
can't.
off. It just sits as a credit on your account basically, but it converts at that day's exchange rate when you pay on. So you'll go on and you'll have a credit on your dues account, and then when the bill comes, instead of us paying it will just go, oh look, there's credit on their account, we'll just take that credit. It's just another cost. Make sure that you work out each year what you will need to pay. I'm
going to leave this next bit up to Siân because I'm 6 years into DVC and I still don't get the next phrase, still don't understand it, confuses me every single year. So
I will try and explain this as simply as possible. So your contract will have what they call a use year. I don't know why they call it a use year. It's a term that makes no sense. It's a use month. I don't know why they call it a use year. So basically it refers to the month that your points renew. So our use year is October. So every 1st of October is when our next year of points start. You can choose what use year you want when you're buying. And they will allocate you a contract with that. Again, that's not something that we knew you could do. We just took whatever contract they had. It works fine for us. But now, having learned what we've learned, we're a bit more clued in and we very closely follow anything kind of like DVC related. We have learned that you want a use year kind of at the beginning of the period of time when you would be due to travel. And that is because, so if you cancel within 30 days of your trip, those points kind of go into holding. Whereas if you cancel before, you still have if your points have renewed at the beginning of your use year, you've still got an amount of time where you can use them without losing them, basically. So say you want to travel, say you travel every year in November, you're going to want an October or November use year, so that then if you book a trip and you have to cancel it, you've still got the year to use those points. That makes sense. And you can access your points 2 years ahead. So say you want to book a trip for October 2025 and your points renew in October 2025. Some people think they have to wait until they're in that month to be able to book the trip, but you don't. You can allocate those points as long as you're traveling within that use year. I think it's 2 years ahead, isn't it, that you can see. You can allocate your points. So I think people have missed out on trips because they've waited until they're within the use year they're traveling. When you don't have to do that, you can work ahead. So basically our 2025 points, we physically get them on the 1st of October 2025, and we can use those points from the 1st of October 2025 to the 31st of September 2026. But say we're travelling in September 2026, that's still our 2025 use year. That's why it's confusing. I think they just stagger it to obviously spread the contracts out, and that's why they all have a different month. Although I don't think there's a January. I think I heard that on the podcast. There's no January use years. But yeah, it's just, again, it's not a game changer. If you find a contract that's amazing and the use year isn't quite right, I don't think it should be a deciding factor personally. That there's always ways around it, but it's just when you hear the term use year, that's what it means. I don't know if I explained that any simpler than...
It's cleared it up for me, but I'll still be asking in a week.
I'll still get all the questions from Callum, like, what use year is that? Okay, so I think that's all the nitty gritty, like financy stuff. We're just going to quickly go over a few kind of bits and pieces that you might need to know. So first off, in terms of bookings, so like we said, you can book 11 months out at your home resort, 7 months at any other resort.
So ultimately you can book a full stay at DVC. So from the 11-month mark, you can book for 7 nights, and then the next day you can add on a night, next day you can add on a night, etc., etc. Or what you can choose to do is book split stays. So that means that you can stay at your home resort for 4 nights, then you can choose to book elsewhere for 4 nights. We've done it quite a lot where we found that actually, as long as it's a minimum of about 3 nights, it's doable during split stays. For us Brits who love doing 2 weeks anywhere, it's different. With DVC you learn to vacation different, so you pack differently, all that sort of stuff, but you get to experience lots of different resorts. If you're looking to stay 14 nights at a particular resort, buy somewhere you want to stay forever and make sure you've got enough points for it.
And I'd still recommend booking it as 2 7-night trips as well, so that you can modify them separately just in case you need to. So book your first one at 11 months, wait 7 nights and book another one for 7 nights. And then you can almost do a week at your home resort and a week somewhere else. And if you can't get a week anywhere else, then you can just merge those 2 reservations together and you've got your 2 weeks, but it just makes it a bit more modifiable. Is that right?
DVC member services are really good at sorting all of that out, so don't worry, they're fantastic. So what you can also do as well is stalk the website. So if you're trying to book a vacation 4 months out and availability doesn't look great, you kind of can piece together stays. So we've done that a lot, where if you just look on the website every day, every couple of days, people will drop days of reservations or weeks of reservations, and then you can pick them up.
People like panic book, so they'll quickly book, and then you'll find it's just constantly, like the inventory is constantly changing, isn't it?
You can also do something called a wait list. So you can wait list to stay. So say you wanted 3 nights at Grand Floridian between certain dates, you could wait list those. You go into a computer system somewhere, and then if that becomes available, the computer system, or I actually think it's just a person that looks through the list.
Yeah, I think it is, they sporadically do it, don't they?
They will cancel a reservation of yours and then replace it with the one that you want. So that option is there for you. One of the best times to look for reservations, if you are 100% sure that you're going to go on the trip, is at the 30-day point, because that's the point where you almost need to have cancelled by, so that your points don't go into holding. So lots of people will release reservations or release nights at that point. So if you're at the 30-day point, get on that website and chances are something might come up.
So yeah, any point up to that 30 days, you can modify your reservations online or again call member services. But any point after that 30 days, it just gets a bit tricky and your points, you don't lose them, but they go into something called holding. I think that's probably like something that's probably for a DVC in detail vlog, because it's still not something that I really understand, to be honest. And then also, so when I said that you can see kind of 3 years of points on your DVC dashboard, that's because you can do something called banking and borrowing. So say you're not going to travel in the use year that you've got those points, you can bank them ahead to the next use year. And vice versa, if you're not going to use next year's points and you want to do a big trip this year, you can borrow those points in. You can only borrow them in 1 year behind or bank them 1 year ahead. And once those points are in the new use year, they can't be moved back. So you need to make sure that you're definite. So like we borrowed points in for our Christmas trip, and then as we were changing resorts around, because some resorts we're going to use less points, we're like, it's not worth it because we've borrowed those points in, so we need to use them. But it's just good if you're planning like some people plan like big family trips where they're going to need bigger accommodations, or if you only want to travel every other year, that's still fine. It still makes DVC a worthwhile purchase, and it just probably means that you can get more for your money every other year if you go, whereas we like stretch ours to the max yearly. But there is the option to move your points around, so it's like you don't have to go every year if you've got then some of the trips planned that you want to do. It just makes it really flexible, doesn't it? Okay, so just other little bits that you might need to know.
Relating to what we just said, one of the best tips is to stretch out your stays using value resorts. So if you want to go on a big 2-week trip, you might only realistically be able to stay with DVC for 14 nights. But if you tagged on 4 nights at an All-Star or a Pop Century, you can extend that stay by just paying a little bit extra top up in cash.
Yeah, and I think that's what we tend to do. Sometimes if we want to go twice in a year, our points don't tend to stretch to two 2-week trips, but we've done 2 like 9-night trips before and then just tagged on value resort stays just to extend it a little bit. So yes, you are paying out of pocket for some cash rooms, but the value resorts are such good value that for us it's worthwhile. But it's just, if you don't quite want to make that initial purchase for a huge contract of points, then it's a good option to have to just stretch out your stays. We mentioned if you need to cancel and you're going to lose your points, that you can rent them out. This is something that's becoming really popular now, is renting out your DVC points, and we've got some friends that always rent other people's points. You can do it through online brokers like DVC Rental Store, David's DVC Rentals, and basically you just list your points and it's a certain amount per point. I think the average is about $15 per point, isn't it, if somebody wants to rent it out from you, and basically they get your stay. So you can rent a set stay, or you can say, we've got this many points, you tell us what you want and we'll try and get it for you, and they pay you an amount of money. And it just, if you're not going to use your points, it's a great way to recoup some of your costs. A lot of people do it and then use that money to then pay their dues. And yeah, it's just a good option. It's a way of getting, if you want to stay at a deluxe resort, it's a way of trying DVC. If you want to try it before you buy it, then it's a good way of doing it, is to rent somebody else's points and kind of see how it works and stuff like that. So yeah, it's good. It's a good option. So
you can use your points on different accommodation that isn't in Disney World or at Alani, etc., etc. So if you wanted to stay at Disneyland Paris, you could use your points to stay there. However, don't, because it's a really, really expensive way of staying there. You can even use your points to stay at All-Star Movies, but again, it's a really expensive way of using your money. And one of the most expensive ways of using your points is on Disney cruises. The equivalent rate is absolutely crazy. So what you're better doing, if you did want to do that, is rent your points out, take that cash, and then go and spend it cash. Which
we've done before. We've done that before. That's probably the question I get the most is do we use our points for cruises? And no, we never would. It's just not good value for money points. Value for points? Let's make that a phrase. It can be done. If you've got loads of points that you need to use and you want to go on a cruise, then by all means do it. But for us, it just wouldn't be worthwhile, but it can be done. You can use it for the parks around the world. Our friends have used their points in, was it Hong Kong?
Mm-hmm.
But again, if you've got the points to use, then great. It saves spending out cash on a stay, but yeah, it's just not the best value. The best way to do it is to rent that out and then just use that cash.
So the last thing is,
it's a phrase very well known in the DVC world.
Add-onitis is real.
Yeah, it's so real.
Yeah, so add-onitis is once you've tasted DVC and once you've got a contract and then you go and stay at all these other resorts, you just want to get more points and you just want to stay at all these resorts more and more and more.
No amount of points will ever be enough.
No.
It really won't. I mean, I'm sure it actually will, but yeah, like we would desperately love to buy another contract, and we will do at some point when finances allow. But it's it's the real deal. The real deal. Even like just thinking, we could just buy a little 50-point contract and get 3 more nights on each day, and it's
And like I've said before as well, you do vacation differently, so it becomes less about the parks and it becomes a lot more about the resorts themselves. So we've had some fantastic days where we've stayed at Grand Floridian and we've just stayed by the pool, or we've had
trips where we don't buy tickets and just go, and that's our holiday, and it's the same as going to Spain or Turkey or somewhere, because it's like we've already paid for it. And the parks aren't the be all and end all to us anymore, which some people literally, honestly, you would believe how flabbergasted people are when they think, when they know we're not going to, like the comments I get, like, you're not going to the parks. I'm like, no, because the resorts to us are just amazing, aren't they? So
yeah, some of the best days we've had is like last Christmas, sat around the pool at Wilderness Lodge was just a pinch me moment, and then visiting the other resorts is just fantastic. So it does make vacation differently.
So lastly, I think for this video, we just wanted to do like a price trip comparison, just to kind of show. I'm very conscious that we're saying like, this is the best decision, you need to do this. It's not worth it for everybody, and it's not, and like worth is so subjective, and so you might look at everything and just go, I just can't see it working for like us as a family, and that's absolutely fine. We had 2 meetings in like the 3 years prior to buying before we bought, because at those 2 meetings it wasn't right for us, and then at the 3rd one we're like, oh, this works for us now. So you might be at the point of the first meeting where you're like, I can't quite work out why it would be worth it for us, and that's fine. One thing I will say is I see a lot of things on the Facebook groups, people compare the cost of a value stay to the cost of DVC, and you cannot compare the two because deluxe stays cost so much more in cash than value, so you have to look at it as the equivalent cost value. And in this comparison, when I say what our trip would have cost cash, we would never have paid that. Like we stayed at Animal Kingdom Lodge, is the only deluxe we stayed at cash, but that was like years ago, and the prices weren't anywhere near what they are now. So I think people say if you want to stay deluxe, then it's like the only way really, if you're going to keep going every year. But if you're happy to stay in the Valley Resorts every time, then it might not be the right decision.
I'd probably even say if you want to stay at deluxe or moderate now with the prices that they are, DVC might be an option for you. Yeah.
So when we went at Christmas, which the vlogs have all just finished for that trip, so go back and watch the vlogs for our Christmas trip. We used our whole year's worth of points. Like we said, Christmas is an expensive time to go, so we used 200 points. And whilst we were there, I was like, I'm just gonna like calculate how much it would have cost us cash to stay in the resorts we did. So we stayed at the Polynesian, Wilderness Lodge and Animal Kingdom Lodge as our DVC stays. And if we'd have spent cash on those stays, it would have cost us $8,000. So we only need to do that trip 4 times over, and it would have been the equivalent to what we've paid for our whole contract for 50 years. Now I know we've got annual dues, so your break-even point extends by a few years because of those dues, doesn't it? I think we worked out, was it about 10 years? after 10 years worth of trips, we would break even, including dues. And, yeah, to make your contract, basically you've paid, even taking the dues that you have yet to pay into consideration, you've paid for your trips for 50 years. So when you first buy, depending on buy, sometimes you end up with like a lump sum of points from the previous year, from like your previous use year, which is what happened to us, wasn't it? So we did a 2-bedroom villa it wasn't our first DVC trip actually, it was our second one, wasn't it? But we took Callum's parents with us, so we needed like a bigger accommodation. So we did a 2-bedroom villa, which again, we don't do regularly, and we won't because it's just so much money, so many points. But that stay would have cost us $12,500. I think it was 5 nights in a 2-bedroom villa, and we paid, I think in dollars it was $32,000 for our contract. So again, 2 and a bit of those stays, and it's paid for itself. So the dues go up with inflation, but the value like per point at your resort it can't change, can it? That is basically, you're basically locking in that price. So because it's all done on like real estate and how many points each resort has allocated to it, again, this is getting very in depth into like the nitty gritty. It can't ever change. It can shift between seasons, so like September could become more expensive and August become less expensive. It can shift about points wise, but the total amount of points and the value won't change. So if you buy this year and then next year it goes up by another 5%, you are forever locked into the cost that you're buying at.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So yeah. I think I was going to do it like so what do we feel 6 years on? I think we've probably covered it, is that we are so very happy. The thing that's tricky currently is that flights for us are a lot more expensive now than they were when we first bought in, but we're just factoring that into the budget. If you're watching this from the US, then
yeah, happy
do
days.
it because like you don't have the international flights to think of. So yeah, we love it, and we were always here to chat things through with people that want to talk about it. I say I get the most amount of messages, people just wanting to understand how it works. So I really hope that this has showed you how it works in an understandable way.
So would you do it again?
Yes, tomorrow.
Would you do it?
They bought me a contract.
Wow, that would be a good way to do it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, would you?
Yeah.
Where would you buy?
I would add on at, once the refurb, Animal Kingdom Lodge.
My heart would say Polynesian,
Mm-hmm.
but my head, I think we will go when we do Animal Kingdom Lodge, just because the points value is so good. Whereas the Polynesian, even a 50-point contract, sometimes we'd only get 2 nights for that.
Yeah.
Depending on when we go.
Yeah.
And we've never struggled to get a room at the Polynesian.
Mm.
At the 7-month mark, so I know that I can still stay there because I left a piece of my heart. Looking for a resale contract, shall we? So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you go back and check out all of our Disney vlogs and Disney cruise vlogs. I think the baby is just waking up, which is perfect timing. We have got an epic summer trip coming up, I'd say. So make sure you stick around and subscribe, because I'm really hoping those vlogs will be fun, even if we're melting. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that it was helpful. Any questions, please do reach out to us on our Instagrams. Callum, go to him for the finance stuff. Go to me for like the Disney magic stuff. Is that right?
That's spot on.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Oh.
Bye. I don't know what Buddha's like. Hi, welcome back to Adventures by Knapps. If you don't laugh straight away.
Sorry. Right, go on.
Hi.
Hi.
No.
Hiya.
Hey up, me duck.
Hello.
50-year contracts, if that's not what you want.
Dues, use years.
Bookings.
And direct
Sorry,
distribution.
I don't know that one.
So with Disney at the moment, if you wanted to buy a Riviera,
and then you have got the 2 beach resorts in Florida. No, not in Florida. The 2 beach resorts on the east coast of Florida. No. You were going to say something else on that thing. You were looking at me as if you were going to say something else.
I'm just taking my booty.
Every change